Back to the show.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Welcome into Community Connections. This is the morning edition, and things might look a little different on screen, everybody.
Yeah.
That is because I have decided to hand off the baton to Phantom today and say, hey, you host the show today, and me and Abby will just be co-pilots.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so Jess is on vacation, not in her normal streaming spot. So she's like, "Hey, can you here's my stream key. Can you do the stream?" And I'm like, "I got this."
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's why it's my background and all that. So thank you, Jess, for trusting me with the reins. I very much appreciate that. So
Absolutely.
So for those in the U.S., it is Labor Day today. So how have you been spending your weekend, Jess?
So I had a family time over the weekend. My mom's birthday was yesterday, and a certain panda's birthday was the day before. So there was a lot of celebration going on. But yeah, I've just been trying to enjoy some relaxing time. I did get a lot of games to the table. It's fun when I can actually play games with my family in person instead of via Zoom call. So yeah, it was really cool. I got to teach them Scout, and they absolutely loved it.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, and we pulled out an oldie but goodie. We pulled out some Rummy Cube and got through a few games of that.
That's a classic. I don't think I played Rummy Cube in forever.
Yeah.
I've never played it.
Oh, Abby, it's a classic.
I hate to admit it, but I've never played it.
Yeah. So that's what we've been doing. And so today it's just more relaxing. I've got my puppy next to me. She's she needs a break from all the family time because there's also other doggos running around.
I bet SB has just had the greatest weekend just playing around with all the other pups.
She's had the greatest time, yeah. And so now she's like, oh, mom's gonna be on stream for 2 hours, and that means I can nap. Heck yeah, I'm coming in where mom's going.
Yay, SB gets a break. That's awesome. Fun fact
yes,
from
today is Phantom CCG Day. That is very true. So yeah, how are you guys, Joe and Abby? How are you guys doing this weekend?
We're doing pretty great. It's been it's been a little bit busy for us. Like I said, we did a stream on Friday, which I was really happy. It was my first ever Kickstarter preview, and I was super glad to do that. It went super well.
I mean, I didn't win at all, so I'm not sure
No.
very well. The game is amazing. I absolutely loved it, but I did not win a single time. So
yeah, and then the one time I did play, I won, and then I ended the stream playing it on hard mode and almost won. So,
almost.
Yeah, it was super fun, and I was really, really happy to do that. And then what did we do on Saturday? I don't think we did very well. Oh, that's right. What I did on Saturday, I did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I went to the dentist, so.
Oh.
Yeah, that's never fun. But yeah, I spent Saturday afternoon. I went over to Lakewood, which is about 2 towns over from me to the south, and I got to play test Randy Flynn's new game, Tabriz.
Nice.
Yeah.
How was that?
It is going to be an amazing game. I still think there needs to be a little bit more polish from what Randy has told me, but it's pretty much, as far as mechanisms wise, it's done. And this coming Friday, I actually had the honor of being lent the prototype, and I'll be playing it on stream with Casey and Miguel from Brain in a Jar. So that's going to be super fun.
On Saturday.
Wait, Saturday. Friday. That's right, Saturday. I'm so used to saying Friday. And then yesterday, Abby, you did your stream with Feast for Odin.
Yep. And
that's
that went pretty
well. That's a classic game. I that's another classic. Not as old as Rummy Cube, but it's classic in terms of the worker placement, resource management kind of mechanic. Yeah. Feast for Odin is just boom. Once you get that game down, any other worker placement game is just going to be a breeze.
Oh, so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did not do well. So that was fun too.
Yeah. All right. So before we introduce our guests, let's of course say hello to everybody that's in the chat.
Yes.
Let's see. We got Tech2674. Welcome in. Cater Blossom, Panda Angel, Dutch Yoda's here, James Brazil, all you fine folks. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. And without further ado, we should probably introduce our guests. So let me
Yeah.
borrow an Olympian term here and floop the dupe, and let's bring him in. All right, here we go. So,
Yay.
for those who don't know who Frank West is, he is the creator of a little game called The Isle of Cats. He also owns City of Games. Frank West, hello. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, no, I'm really, really good. It's great to be here. It's fantastic seeing you guys, smiley faces, waving hands. I'm wonderful. I'm really happy to be here. I hope you guys are doing well as well.
Yeah, we're doing great. Such a pleasure to meet you for the first time at Gen Con. That was wild time, but amazing to meet another smiling face.
Yeah, it was awesome to have a booth right next to your booth, Frank. So like every day we would just like slowly glance and like wave at each other.
It's so funny though, isn't it? Because you get so busy that the majority of the time that we see each other is just running past someone's booth. You're either trying to get to a meeting or get to the bathroom or something, but it's just constantly, hey, how are you doing? As you kind of walk past, and you never get to stop and actually speak to them. But it was obviously nice to get to meet yourself as well, Joe, like in the evening and one night as well. It was outside of the halls. It's a little bit easier to chat. So that was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I think that was my entire Gen Con experience too. Like if I wasn't sitting at a table up in the CCG room, CGE room, doing demos of Lost Ruins of Arnak, I pretty much was just running around and saying hello to whoever I could in the exhibit hall, and it was quite the experience. And so Dutch Yoda kindly corrected me. The Isle of Cats isn't that little anymore. And that's very true. So that'll lead into our first question. Frank, go ahead and tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself, and the standard introduction spiel, if you will.
Yeah, so I'm, believe it or not, from my accent, based in the UK. I live in a city called Bristol, where I've been I know, big surprise. I've been here for quite a while now. I'm guessing must be well over 10 years, which makes me feel old, but I pretend that it's not been quite that long most of the time. I started designing games like professionally about 5 or 6 years ago, and like I just enjoy it. It's really funny when people ask me to introduce myself, because I don't really like to think of myself as someone who runs a publishing company or someone who's running some business or whatever. I just think of someone who I get to play games for a living and sometimes design them and have a lot of fun with it. So I mean, for me, really, I'm someone who I've enjoyed my games my whole life. I've enjoyed both video games and physical board games for a really, really long time. And just through a series of kind of unlinked connections, I guess, board games have always somewhere been in my life without me realizing it. Like the tabletop hobby has always just been kind of like behind a closed door, tempting me in, and I've always kind of refused without knowing. And then at some point in the last like 10 to 15 years, I finally fell down that rabbit hole, and I guess I'm kind of clawing my way out, but enjoying it too much that I don't want to leave.
Yeah. And
That's
you forgot to mention, Frank, that you are now the new president of Gamma.
Yeah. Congratulations on
congratulations on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you
explain a little bit about what Gamma is for those that don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So Gamma is the trade association for the tabletop industry. It's basically, its core purpose is to help our hobby be better, to help grow it, to introduce more people to games, to help designers, publishers, retailers, media creators, anyone who works some way in the industry. It's there to give them more opportunities, to help them with problems, and just to make this a better place for all of us. It's really funny because, there's loads of technicalities behind what it's there for, but really the guiding principle is just to get more games onto more tables and to make sure people have access to those tables. And a big part of that is through event organization, networking, and just helping all of us kind of be in a better place so we can move forward without so many problems behind us.
That's fantastic. Panda says, I'm so happy I got to meet you, Frank, and say hi at different cons. Congrats on becoming president. Agreed.
Well, it's been great to meet you, Panda. And obviously, the great thing is I'm hoping to see you at basically every convention moving forward ever now. So, you can't get rid of me. Once you've met me, that's it. I'm going to say hi. I'm going to play games with you. I'm going to chase you down and just be like, hey, here's a board game. You like board games. Let's play. Let's have fun. And that's it.
I will
there's no
say
getting
this
away.
year's at Gamma, it was hilarious, Frank, because you were holding Explore and Draw like on your person, and you were just walking around the halls and everything. And I was like, Frank, what are you doing? He was like a walking display for this game. And I was like, are we going to play? Are you just going to stand there and hold your game?
That's so
Yeah,
good.
I'm very keen on basically like just walking around carrying my game and in a way where it's really obvious that you can see the cover. Like I'm not holding it against my shirt, I have it out with the name visible to everyone and just walk around until someone's like, can I play that? And I'm like, yeah, let's go and play. Let's have some fun. Because I feel very lucky because as much as this is my job and what I do for a living, it's just something I enjoy so much. I love playing games. I've played thousands of games over the years. I never get tired of playing new games, and the games I design because they're games I want to play. So it's kind of like win-win with my stuff. Like I really enjoy playing it, and obviously it's great to be able to show people as well.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
awesome.
That's also I guess we can kind of segue into one of our first questions. So obviously
Sure.
you're a gamer at heart, it sounds like, which is really fantastic. But how did you wind up getting into the hobby?
So I was born in the 80s, and I was lucky enough to basically grow up with the console generation of video gaming. So, the kind of Nintendos and Segas that eventually evolved into the Sonys and Microsofts. But I grew up with those original consoles, and I was very lucky that we had one in our house. So I was playing games video games from a very, very young age, and always kind of gone into gaming through that. As I kind of grew up, we played more and more video games, and then things like Monopoly and Clue and all of your kind of standard mass market board games started kind of coming into my family, and we were playing them together. We used to play kind of with a deck of cards, normal playing cards. We'd play various different card games as a family together as well. And then over the years, I just got introduced to different things. So, for example, at secondary school, so when I was probably 14, 15, I started playing Magic the Gathering. Someone introduced me to that. And it was Magic the Gathering that only existed for about 2 years at this point. And I was lucky enough to kind of start playing it. And we played it loads. And I played Magic the Gathering for years and years just as a hobby. I never thought outside of what MTG was. That was it. But I enjoyed it. As I went to university, I got massively into playing Risk, believe it or not. And I'm talking about, we would get 4 boards and then connect the edges of the boards to other boards. And then we'd sit there and play for weeks on end. So all these people who say Risk takes too long, I mean, you get 4 boards together and you are in for a joyful, joyful time. So these things kind of all happened. And at the same time, at secondary school when I was 16, I had to do a graphics project, and my graphics project was to design a board game. And I created an Egyptian-themed version of Monopoly and just changed, Monopoly and all of this stuff. And it was just little bits and bobs of my life where there are different aspects that kind of tied in. And whilst all of this was happening, I was studying computer science. I was massively into my video games, and I was always programming little kind of mini games and just playing around with ideas. And I had this grand kind of dream of creating this massive video game, the kind of game where you need a team of like 100 people and like a $200 million budget, big proper kind of video games. And I was never going to get to a point where I could kind of do that, but it was something I spent decades just thinking about, playing around with ideas from a young child all the way up. Was always something I had ideas. And then I suddenly went to a video game group. It was just like a random social group in Bristol. And we got there and we were just chatting. It was a way for kind of video gamers to meet each other. And there's one guy there was like, I brought these couple of little card games with me that we could play whilst we're chatting. And they were, board games, right? Tabletop games. And suddenly we were like, this is a lot of fun. Let's stop talking about video games. Let's start doing this. And every week we would turn up and we'd play these games and people would bring more games. And I just slowly got introduced to them. And then fell down the hole where I had to buy the games and I had to buy more games and I needed more games and I found Kickstarter and I backed Kickstarters and everything was turning up. And it's funny when I look at my Facebook, and every so often it's like 9 years ago you had this many games, like 10 years ago you had this many games, like 8 years ago you had this many, and now you've got like thousands and thousands of games, and you just see that kind of spill. But as I kind of played these games more and more and just got really into them and I started playing bigger and more complex games, it started to dawn on me that this was something that could be like a video game, right? The complexities, the mechanisms, they weren't just rolling dice, moving and buying property, right? There was so much more to it. There was difficulties, there was cooperation, there were creatures, character building, all of this kind of stuff that started to make me think, well, actually, what I wanted to make as video games, those dreams I had, was something I can maybe start doing as board games. And as time went on, I started playing around with this stuff and got more and more into the hobby, playing around with ideas. And then I started commuting to Amsterdam for work, and I would fly to Amsterdam on a Monday morning, come back on Thursday night, and I'd spend 3 nights in a hotel. And, any young man living in Amsterdam on his own for 3 nights a week was just like, I'm going to stay in the hotel and start designing board games, because that's exactly what everyone imagines you doing in Amsterdam. So I would go to work in the morning, I'd come back to my hotel room, I'd start cutting up paper and drawing pictures. And then, after several months of doing this, I came back to England and no more traveling, met up with some of my friends, and I was like, I've made a game, let's play it. And then that was it. Years of playing that game, refining it, and just everything just kept growing, playing more games, designing more games, and just falling in love with like this physical version of what I always imagined I was going to be doing in a digital way. But that kind of is a 20-minute answer to probably what was a 2-minute question. So there we go.
No, this is fantastic.
I loved it.
Yeah, we I mean, the fact that you're telling stories behind the questions, like it kind of makes our job easier, because we get to find out so much more about you, and I'm sure chat can agree that and that's kind of the whole purpose of what we do here. Like, we want to get to know the person behind the title, the name. Like, we want to know about you, so this is absolutely great.
Yes.
Yeah, never apologize for talking too much, Frank.
Yeah, we got some questions from chat. Jess or Abby, if you want to get to those.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask Panda's question.
Yep.
And then you can ask James's question, Abby. So Panda asks, what's your favorite game to play right now, Frank, that you did not design?
That is a really difficult question for me to answer. So I am someone who I really enjoy playing games I haven't played before. So there are some games that I will play multiple times and play a lot, but my kind of general rule is I want to play like 500 new games a year, and then maybe play like 20 games 2 or more times. Like, I just want to focus on seeing new stuff, playing new stuff, learning new stuff. So my kind of taste like changed drastically, because my favorite kind of game I want to play is basically the last game in the next game, because that's what it is. Like, it's unfair for me to say like, oh, there's a current game I want to play a lot, because generally speaking, like there's not many games that I'll play lots and lots of times. So kind of cheating on the answer, but again, hopefully honest insight into kind of my approach on that stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So James is popping out questions, which I love. So his first one is, do you prefer designing games or publishing games?
It's a really, really interesting question, because so for me, publishing is, you take a game that's been designed, you work out artwork, often you do the manufacturing, you do the logistics, you do the marketing, the sales, the videos, like all of those kind of things, which I absolutely love doing. Like, I love it so much. I love spreadsheets, I love numbers. Like, this is why I sit down and play big, complex, heavy Euro games, right? I want to sit down and I want to move pieces around and see what happens. So I truly love doing that side, and I would never not want to do it. but game design is like, that's the passion, right? That's the kind of part which I wake up in the morning. Like, I mean, this might come as a surprise, but like if I wake up in the morning, I might go, hey, like, you know, I can use like hexagonal cards and I can solve this cool problem and build this and get excited by it. But I don't often wake up and think, hey, I can save $2.99 on shipping to France if I work with this company rather than that company. Like, it's a different kind of excitement, you know? And so I think for me, like, I really enjoy the designing of games. Like, if I had to choose one or the other, that would be it. But I don't think I would want to just design games. Like, I love the other side so much. And the most important part to that for me is it helps keep everything fresh, because I'll sit down and I'll design games and then I'll find the game that I'm going to work through. And then once I've spent, you know, 3, 6, 12 months, whatever, working on that game solidly, then I kind of take a break from that. That's when I then start thinking about the marketing. I start thinking about the logistics, the manufacturing, the Kickstarter, you know, talking to people like yourselves where I open the door and go, I can go outside again. I've done my game, you know, and I can start doing this stuff. And then once that's done, I kind of go back to the game design. And therefore, I'm not just doing the same thing every single day. And, you know, a lot of jobs I've had in the past prior to this, you get to a point, for me at least, where, you know, after 6 months, I'm like, well, I just do the same thing every day. Whilst with my current setup, I don't, because I'll spend a few months doing manufacturing, I'll spend a few months doing logistics, and then I won't do them for another year. So it just keeps it super fresh, super exciting.
You'll probably have to add to that writing blogs too, Frank. So it's like designing, publishing, writing also. Because I'm sure you probably take writing breaks as well, right?
Yeah, the writing part's been quite interesting. So that's something I started this year, was the blog and writing that. So at the moment, I've not kind of worked out how I want to approach it. Like, I've always got loads of topics in my head, and I've not decided whether I want to be like spend 2 days and write 20 blog articles and then post them, or whether I want to get to 3 o'clock on a Tuesday and go, I need to post something in an hour. I probably should write it now. And I'm going back and forward. So at the moment, they've been quite kind of new and fresh, and I've not worked out my favorite way of handling it, but it's a cool thing to be doing. Like, I'm really enjoying sharing information, helping others kind of learn and kind of give them options, and just seeing the questions people ask. You know, that's the interesting part for me, is like seeing what people are struggling with, what people need help with, and then being able to offer that in some form.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
That is fantastic. All right, so here might be a loaded question for you, and this is one of my favorite questions. Do you still consider yourself a player first, a designer second, or has the creative process overtaken the hobby aspect of gaming for you?
It is an interesting question, to say the least. So for me, I would say that I am capable of still being just a hobby gamer. Like, if, like with Sarah and like some of our couple friends, if they want to come over and we sit down and play a game, you know, I'll pick out a game, I'll work out what we're going to play, and we'll just have a good time. And that's it, right? That's kind of like just playing the games because we want to have fun. But then I've got my other group of friends, the group of friends who are super into their heavy Euros. You know, if it doesn't take 6 hours and doesn't require a pen, paper, and spreadsheet to play, they're not interested. And with those guys, when we play games, we enjoy sitting down and moaning about how badly designed it is and how they should have done this and why didn't they do that, just as much as playing the game. So with them, I would say I probably still sit designer first, but it's kind of just dependent on the people I'm with and the people I'm playing with and the environment. And I think that plays with a lot of stuff, right? Because if you go to the cinema with your work colleagues versus going to cinema with your friends or your family, you're generally going to behave a little differently. You might discuss it in a slightly different way. So in hobby environments, I'm still a gamer. And, you know, I'm going to be going to Dice Tower West. I'm going to Dice Tower West. That's the side of the country next year. I've never been before. I'm not exhibiting. I'm not going there for work purposes. I'm going there just because I want to experience it, to play games and meet new people. And I've never been to that convention. So for me, I'm going there as a hobbyist, right? If people don't know who I am and no one speaks to me and it's just about playing games, I'll be more than okay, because I just love that side of it just as much.
Well, Dice Tower West is a fantastic experience. Like, I went myself for the first time back in March, and it's definitely a play games con. So I think you chose the right one to go to.
Yes, I really can't wait for it. I love to try and go to one new convention each year. So things like Gen Con and UK Games Expo and Essen Spiel, like I go to every year kind of in normal circumstances. And then I try and pick one new show, and Dice Tower West was high on my list, obviously.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Board
awesome.
Game Bree said she will be also at Dice Tower West. Board Game Bree works for Lucky Duck Games.
Yes, no,
So
I look forward to seeing you there. But I'm sure I'll probably see you at some other shows as well before then, Brie.
yeah. All right. Next question that we have. What is something, Frank, that you wish that could improve or change within the board gaming hobby? And you can
Something
interpret
that
this
could
question however you like.
something that could improve or change within the board game hobby. So there's a lot of things I would change and a lot of things I would improve. I think that I would love to see uh, people to not evaluate the value of a game based on how big the box is. I think that we have got to a point where the cost of games, the cost of shipping, and all of this stuff has created a bit of a negative situation in that, yeah, if I want to make a really cool giant experience for you and you're going to have loads of fun with it, but I can get it in an Azure size box or I can get it in a Gloomhaven size box, but it's still the same game, then if I want you to see that it's a big giant game, that Gloomhaven box is the way that is perceived to go to be able to put that price tag on it. And all that does is it makes it more expensive for everyone because now the shipping is more expensive, the weight's more expensive, and so on. So I'd love to see a way to make good games in smaller boxes have the same value as larger games. I think, with the current economy issues that a lot of people are experiencing around the world, that would just be a really easy solution that we can still just get as much of enjoyment without that kind of stuff. I think that obviously the kind of inclusivity side of things and just making people feel like they can come and sit at a table and play games and just be welcome there and fully representative like inside games is really important. As much as I think the hobby has improved greatly over the last couple of years and even longer than that, there's still a lot of publishers and designers that come to me that have, a box of white characters and haven't ever considered the fact that there should probably be at least a female, let alone anything else in that box. And it's hard because obviously a lot of these people are people who have never done this before. And it's hard to know if you're not from a background where you've had that experience, right? It's not necessarily done maliciously. It's just that kind of resource for how do I know what I need to be kind of knowing without knowing it? So that's an important part for me. But also, I think just like that continuous growth towards mass market, wide appeal, wide kind of awareness of board gaming as being a fun thing to do with your friends and family. And we're getting there, at least for me, like 10 years ago, the idea of going to sit in a local pub or bar or whatever you call them in America with a board game and some friends felt like a concerning situation, right? People were going to look at us, people were going to judge us. Whilst now I can do that where I live, and people will come over and ask what the game is and they'll ask if they can play, and that's really cool. But just widening that and pushing that, because board gaming is growing, it's huge, but it's still so small compared to other hobbies. I was it's funny. So a great example I like to give of that. So I was listening to an interview of an author the other day, and they were talking about how they had just sold, I'm not going to say the number, they had just sold X million copies of a book. And I remember sitting there and thinking, as far as I'm aware, that one book has sold more copies than the entirety of the top 100 on Board Game Geek. And when you think of that, like, it's just, we're still so small, we're still so tiny, and for me, just growing that in every way is like my top desire, to say the least.
Wow, that is so astonishing, but it's true, and we think about even just in the comparison of video games, to board games too. There's still a long way to go for the entertainment hobby value to reach the numbers that a video game, would.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but Riot Games released a game called Mechs vs. Minions a few years ago, and Riot Games, a League of Legends, they're this big video game company. And I remember at the time, people were like, "How are they making this game so cheap?" and so on. And I looked into the numbers, and their company at the time was valued at more than the entire board game industry. And you kind of, when you think of it like that, there's just, it's such a different level. Look at YouTube channels, right? The Dice Tower and Shut Up and Sit Down, two of our kind of big YouTube channels, sit at 350,000 subscribers. Whilst if you look at video game channels, they're sitting at tens of millions. And if you've got 300,000, you're still an amateur getting started in the video game world. And it's very, very different numbers. And, I'm still very happy with where we're at. But that growth, the room, and that potential, there's so much opportunity to bring so many more people in and just to give people this great experience with their family and their friends and so on. And that's, for me, something that I think about a lot and ways we can do that.
Yeah.
But
we're still here. We're still here.
Yeah.
So I don't want us to feel like numbers shouldn't be anything, even though in the large scheme of things, unfortunately, they do take that precedent. But
yes,
I feel like we still have a strong community and a strong group of people that want to see that change. So I'm glad you're one that's going to be understanding that those things shouldn't matter, and yet in the long scheme of things, they kind of do. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yep, and speaking of video games, since we kind of touched the topic, another question from James Brazil: do you actually still play video games? And if so, what do you fancy?
I do. So I am basically someone you don't want to play video games with. I'll be very clear about these days. So when I was younger, I played like anything and everything, right? And then I started getting more and more thinky, more and more into the strategy and complexities of games. So these days, through my own, hold my hands up and say it out loud, I won't really play a game unless I feel like I can play it at the top professional level of kind of like esports competition. And I used to be very competitive when I used to play games. So if I pick up a new game to play, unless it's like a 20 minutes or 20-hour kind of story game, something quick or whatever, then I will go all out. And generally, my way of playing a game is I pick the game and then I spend 6 weeks in a spreadsheet doing numbers and maths before I even start playing the game, right? Because I want to work it out. I want to get the numbers. I want to watch videos. I want to get to that level. So the most recent game that I played was Path of Exiles, and that is an ARPG. It's been around for a very long time, but when I played that, I ended up paying it for 1,100 hours within like the first kind of like 4 months. Like it was one of those things where it was funny because it'd been a long time since I sat down and played a game and said, I want to play it to that level. And so long that it was the first time whilst I was with Sarah. And me and Sarah have been together for over 8 years now. And I remember sitting down and saying to her, I'm going to practice for this competition. I really want to be in this competition. I'm going to practice for it. And she was like, so what does that mean? And I was like, I'm going to go into my room and you're not going to see me again until it's done. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, obviously you can come in, you can say hi or whatever, but I'm going to sit down and play. She was like, so what? You're going to like play until you go to bed or whatever? And I was like, no, I'm not going to sleep. And she was like, what? And for me, like that's how it was, right? So I played solidly for something like 65 hours. I just sat there and played for 65 hours with food and bathroom breaks, but no sleep. And that was my like starting point for that kind of game. Like it's super, super hardcore. So these days I kind of play more board games because you can only play them for 2 hours before you have to stop. I guess that's probably a healthy way.
All right, that's quite the story. I love it.
Yeah, Joe's like, ooh.
Yeah, you know,
intrigued there.
I am a little intrigued because there have definitely been games where I've, sat for an extended period of time and just played because it's that immersive, it's that good. So I can understand that, but I can safely say I don't think I've ever min maxed like you have. Like I'm not that level of a gamer, so I'm kind of impressed.
No, usually after like 14 or 16 hours, I'm like, you said you were coming to bed 20 minutes ago, and that 20 minutes ago was 3.5 hours ago. If you're not coming to bed, can you at least like turn on my fan? And then he's like, oh, I so got distracted. And I'm like, that's fine, but I didn't turn my fan on. Can you just come turn on my fan? I don't care what you do at this point.
Yeah.
But it's like a blessing and a curse because I hadn't played a console game for a very, very long time. And then obviously we had the pandemic and we were in lockdown. Sarah was at home off work and stuff, so we had more time. And the PlayStation 5 had just come out, and there was a game that we were both interested in that had a really good story and narrative. And we bought it. And this was the first time that the two of us had sat down and played like a game like this. And we set it up, and the first thing I did was went to the options and found the absolute hardest difficulty for this game. And Sarah was just looking at me and just like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm only going to play it on like the hardest difficulty. And she's like, but you've not played like a console game in like 8 years. Like you've got no chance. And I was like, we'll work it out. And we played for a few hours and we got there, and then we came up to this boss, and I died like in 2 seconds. I ran in, died in like 2 more seconds. And after about 6 or 7 deaths, she just looked at me and she's like, can we play it on an easier setting? And I was like, I'm going to learn this fight and I'm going to work it out. And about 2 hours later, I killed this boss. And she was like, this isn't the immersive narrative experience I was expecting us to have.
Oh, okay. I need to know what game this is now.
It was Horizon's New Dawn.
Oh, okay, Horizon New Dawn. Okay, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense because I haven't actually played it yet, but Abby, you played that a little bit.
I have. It's super fun, and I can easily see how I would get sucked into it. Like my ADHD gets really bad with video games, so I'm either like completely in or it's like 20 minutes and I'm out. That was one where all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's been like 2.5 hours. I should probably like go do something. And I'm like, or I just sit here for like 10 more minutes. And it was not 10 more. It's never 10 more minutes.
We had so much fun with that game. It was such an amazing experience. Like the world they created felt so new and unique, and it was just so different. And the biggest problem we have now is the sequel, the second part is kind of released, and we just don't have time anymore because the lockdowns are over. We're both back at work, and we're just like, we want to play it. We want to play it so badly because it was amazing. But challenging if you've not played a console game for 10 years and you dive into the hardest difficulties, apparently.
I did easy mode and I still was like getting my butt kicked, and that's when I ended it because I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'll come back when I've, thought about it harder.
Oh, that is way too funny. All right, I think we had a couple more questions in chat. If you want to throw one at Frank, Abby.
Yeah, let me scroll back. So James asked, what is one tool that you would most recommend using for an aspiring designer or publisher?
A tool, sorry.
Yes, a tool.
Yeah. I feel like the easy answer here is a pen and paper, but obviously I'm assuming that a lot of people use a pen and paper. But the reason I say that is because I feel like a lot of designers rush to make their games look pretty. They rush to try and make the graphic design and the layouts work and sensible. And for me, I'm a big fan of just really, really bad looking prototypes for as long as possible, because I learned very early on that as soon as you add anything that looks good to a game, it distracts people from giving you honest feedback on the game. You could take the worst board game of all time and add beautiful artwork, beautiful miniatures, put it into a room of people, and they'll turn around and be like, oh yeah, it's great. It looks good. And they kind of like circumnavigate the bad part of the game because of how good it looks. So I've tried to just strip back. So for me, I would just say, keep really on that pen and paper side and just really use that for a long time. outside of that, as an actual tool, I guess, one which I've discovered has been very beneficial for me, at least, is a website called TransferWise, which is a website for transferring money from one country to another country. Because I work with a lot of people from all around the world, TransferWise, obviously not affiliated, not a sponsor, but TransferWise is really, really good at basic. So what they do is they store money in bank accounts in each of these different currencies. So when you give them money in one, they just take it out of their bank in another, and they charge you like a very small fee for the privilege of doing that. And they don't do what a lot of banks do, which is charge you a percentage and these big kind of amounts. So I've had some transfers I've done where it saved me like $5,000-$10,000 in fees. So big fan of TransferWise.
Interesting.
All right, Jess, let's throw it back to you.
Yeah. Then thanks for the follow, Parrot Attack. Always appreciate the new follows. Let's see. Okay, this one's kind of fun. I don't know if you actually have someone in mind, Frank, but do you have a fan experience? Meaning, have you met somebody in the hobby that you were like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to meet this person, and like a story behind it? Or if you don't have something, do you have a story where someone has met you and you had kind of that like fan experience?
So for me personally, I suppose I'm lucky. I don't know if that's the right word, in that I've never been someone who kind of takes that role of being a fan. Like, there's people who I appreciate their work and respect their work, but I guess I've never really seen that kind of like status elevation kind of thing of them being a untouchable person or a more special person because of that. So it in that sense, I don't feel like I've ever had that. I've been a fan of kind of someone in that way and met them. There's been a lot of people who I very much respect and kind of feel like they've got really great kind of work, or they've done something really good, and I've been really a big fan of just meeting them through that. And likewise, from the kind of the fan experience, I definitely feel like I've had a few people who have come up to me who have been big fans of my stuff, but I try so hard to kind of break down that boundary, because I don't want to come across as someone who's not approachable or someone who is different, right? I'm someone who enjoys playing board games. Like, you may have played my game, you might have met me, but I don't want to kind of come across as that status. So as a story, because I don't want to just kind of cheat answer this, at my very first convention after my first Kickstarter, a gentleman came up to the stand, and he was an older gentleman, and he'd enjoyed like the Kickstarter for the game. I don't think the game had come out yet, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm a huge fan of your stuff, and I've designed my own like clothing for the City of Kings, which was my game back then." And I was like, this is going to be quite cool, you know, like I've like not experienced this. And then they basically take off like their shirt, and they've just got like a string vest on, and it's basically like hand drawn kind of like 4-year-old kind of level picture. And I was just kind of like, I was not expecting this. I'm not quite sure like what to do. So you're respectful, you know, and I was like, you know, oh, that's really cool, you know, it's really great. And then he spent about an hour and a half just kind of stood there, kind of not really wanting to have a conversation, but not really wanting to kind of go anywhere. And every time I tried to engage, like, he shut the conversation off. And then he kind of came up to me like after that period and was just like, I've been watching you, like I really enjoy how like you do stuff and all of your stuff, and I'm going to see you next year, and I'm going to have another t-shirt that I've made myself. And then kind of walked away. And for me, I was kind of like, it was an experience. It was definitely someone who was very excited by the prospect of being there and kind of meeting me, and that's nice, you know. It's really nice that you're having that effect on someone, but at the same time, like, I don't really want to kind of ever get to a situation where I have fans, because I feel like at that point I kind of there's like a barrier between us, and I don't want that barrier. I want people to be comfortable. And again, you know, going to Dice Tower West, that's so I can go and just play games with people, right, and just try and break down some of that stuff. So
Right. Yeah, Panda does say she apologizes for tackling you at Gen Con while you were eating ice cream, Frank. I was just excited to see you.
I'm not gonna lie, that was basically a nightmare. Like that was like so. For anyone who doesn't know, when you're at Gen Con, there's this big kind of outdoor food market, and we had just finished exhibiting. So me and Sarah were absolutely exhausted, and we'd gone out there and we'd had some food, and then we were like, we're gonna get more food because we're still hungry because we don't have lunch. Like we work nonstop throughout it, and we bought these kind of like ice cream cake things. And they were the messiest, most difficult things. You know, as soon as you take that first mouthful, they just start breaking apart. You've got it all over your fingers. You kind of feel like you've got it all over your chin and in your hair. And just at this moment, Panda walks past with like 20 people. I don't know how many it was. I was just like, hey, Frank, how are you doing? Let me introduce you to all these people. And then all these people start coming over and they're like, hey, how are you doing? And I'm like, I can't touch you. I can't hug you. I don't want you to see my face. And it was horrendous.
Oh my
But
goodness.
for all the right reasons, I should say.
Yeah. Oh man, that's too funny. That is too funny. Sliver says a comment for Frank. I am so excited for Race to Raft as my playtest of the game was so magnificently fun.
Well, firstly, Slivers, it's great to see you. Not to derail the stream at all, but when I used to stream on Twitch, obviously Slivers was someone who would always turn up and we'd speak a lot, and it's been a long time since I've been on Twitch, been able to chat, so it's great to see you again. And I'm also equally excited for Race to the Raft. It's gonna be good. I'm really excited about it. I could tell you a fun story about it if you'd like to hear a fun story.
Absolutely.
Why not? For those of us who aren't familiar what Race to the Raft is, I mean, give us a little background if you'd like.
So I'm going to say no, just because I haven't started talking about it yet. But soon,
Fair
give
enough.
it not
Fair
long,
enough.
not too long, but it'll be there soon.
That's fine.
But this weekend, Sarah and I went to do a photo shoot. Now, I'm not a photographer, okay? I'm not, but I want to just practice and get used to it. So we're going to go to the beach and we're going to try and take some photos. And there's one piece that is waterproof and it's water related. And we're at the ocean, right? With this golden beach and the waves breaking and the froth sliding across the sand. And I was like, do you know what would be really cool? Why don't we put this piece on the sand, have a wave crashing behind it with the froth coming up, and just as it gets up to this piece, I'll take the perfect photo. Obviously, I've got no idea what I'm doing, right? So all I know is I've got an incredibly expensive non-waterproof camera, and we've got a beach with a very fast, strong current and signs saying warning wind, don't go near the water, and so on. And we work out where we're going to go. So we're looking at where the lines of the water are coming in. And I say to Sarah, right, you kind of walk out into the ocean as you do, and where the water's going to like pull back, you can put it down on the ground, and I'm going to get down in front of it, and I'm going to get the camera ready. And then as the water comes in, like count it down, right? Tell me, it's like 3 meters away, 2 meters, or 3 foot, 6 foot, 9 foot, 6 foot, 3 foot as it gets to me. And then I'll take the perfect photo. So as we do this, I realize that I've got to be right down on the ground. So I lie down on my stomach, like a beached whale, just kind of like frolicking around in the sand with the camera, and I'm kind of focusing on the piece. And the water's not coming, so we've got a bit of time to kind of get it all right. And then Sarah's like, right, the water's coming, it's 9 foot away, 6 foot away, 3 foot away. And I can't see anything because I'm looking through the lens of this camera, and I can only see like the half meter in front of me. And then she's like, it's 2 foot, it's 1 foot, and then I see the water coming in, so I take the photo. And just at this moment, firstly, the water obviously grabs the piece and then pushes it across the beach. And we've only got one of these. So Sarah's now running across the beach, like trying to chase the water as it's taking our own sample of this piece away from us. And at the same time, I'm now lying on my stomach with water slowly rising up to my chin, holding a big expensive camera above my head, thinking I've got my hands full, I can't put them on the ground to stand up, I don't know how to get up, I'm gonna drown, I need Sarah to come back and take the camera from me so I can actually get up, as the water's just getting deeper and deeper. And luckily I didn't drown and die a horrible death, and we did find the piece, but we realized why people don't take photos like that, because it was
That is quite the ordeal.
we only took one, and it turned out terribly. So you win some and you lose some.
Yeah. Oh man, James says racing for the raft has a new meaning now. Run for the peace, it should be called. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure that if we had had someone filming that experience, that it would have been like the top of TikTok, because it was just, when you see someone do something and you're just like, have you thought about what's actually going to happen at the moment after you've done it? Have you thought about the consequences? And
Yeah.
you know that they haven't. That when they're rolling around in the ocean, holding this stuff above their head, hardly able to breathe, you know that they're panicking.
Yeah. Oh man, well, Sliver
great.
seems really excited about the game, and with that story, Frank, I'm intrigued.
Yep.
Yeah, I am as well. I mean, with the little tidbit you gave us with a waterproof piece, yeah, definitely intrigued.
Yeah. Abby, you got a next question for us?
Sure. Let's see. What is your favorite game night snack?
Ooh.
Oh my goodness. See, this depends on whether I'm with people I trust or not. Because if I don't trust them, then like individually wrapped hard-boiled sweets, so there's no chance they're going to get anything dirty or sticky or anything. I suppose I'm a big fan of popcorn, so I do enjoy popcorn. And if you like, a lot of popcorn is quite clean, especially if it's not covered in sauces and toppings and it's just salted or something. So for me, that's quite a good one. But to be honest, a lot of the time we do things like kind of like strawberries and grapes and berries and actually fruits, because there's something that obviously as they're smaller you can eat a whole one in one go. If you're me, at least, I'm sure some people don't eat them whole, but I do, which means you've got no mess, you've got no waste, and it's just clean and it's healthy. Because I don't know about you guys, but if I'm at a point where I'm doing gaming and we're going down the snacks level, then quite often that means that we might be there for like 10 or 12 hours, and therefore we probably should have something healthy and not just be having sugar and cake the entire time that we're doing it.
Yeah, that's completely fair. So we have a comment in chat from Parrot Attack. Can you ask Frank who his favorite person is and why is it them? Also, I can confirm from earlier that his prototypes always look awesome. Love you, Frank. I'm guessing,
Awful. They look awful.
I'm guessing that has to be your better half.
No, so Parrot Attack is a good friend of mine. There's someone who lives in the same city as me, but they're one of the few people who get to see a lot of my kind of like production samples and things prior to me kind of making them public. There's someone who I trust a great deal and value their opinion of quite highly. So whenever I've got something and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'm happy with it or not, then I'll show it to them and they'll turn around and go, it's awful, go and do it again. And then I'll go off and cry, and then I'll come back and do it again. So
Well, at least you have somebody with that honesty too. I think that's probably more helpful than somebody that you know and trust, and they're like, "Oh, it's fine,"
Absolutely. Yeah. My best play testers are people who like hate everything and they're just going to tell you, because obviously you have to be thick-skinned to deal with it, but it's so important, like, because they're such good friends, right? And they're just going to tell me straight, and that's so important, because otherwise no one's, if you're not hearing that something is bad in your game until your game has been printed and is in reviews and on shelves, then you're just not having the right people play test, and you're not talking to the right people with your game.
All right. Okay, so since we're kind of on the topic of design, if you could redesign any one game, what would it be?
It's always a curious question, because like of my own games, like I don't think that I would, because I come from a programming background. Like prior to being in the board game industry, I was a programmer, and I always used to say to my team and everyone I worked with that if you can't do it better the second time, then you shouldn't be doing it at all. Because I'm a firm believer that you will always improve and do better with something. So for my own games, like I think I could redesign all of them to be better than what they were, but I couldn't have done that if I hadn't got the experience and hadn't got it out now. And I would argue no one could probably do it like as their first attempt because they haven't had those lessons. When it comes to like other people's games, it's always curious to me, the concept of redesigning a game, like again your own or someone else's, because you don't know what the intent was, right? You could pick up a game and you could play that game and go, this game is awful, like I hate it, I don't enjoy this game, like why did they make it? But then in the next room there could be 20 people who are saying this is the best game I've ever played, I've absolutely loved it. So I'm always hesitant to like want to change stuff because people are enjoying it, people like it for what it is. But for me, I would say that the lessons on all of these things is, how would you do it better? You know, if you were to like redesign a new game with those learnings. So as an example, you know, the Art of Cats is me learning from multiple other games. You know, I played games like Patchwork, I played games like Indian Summer, I played games like Terraforming Mars, I played games like Bunny Kingdom. And with all of those games, I played them and thought there are things I would do differently. And the Art of Cats is a combination of those learnings and then that game. So it kind of is a redesign, but not of one game in particular, but of multiple other games. So I wouldn't say there's like a game as such that I would want to just like redesign from scratch, because it's just not the way I feel like these kind of things work.
That's a fair answer to that question. Like I never even thought about it that way. I can appreciate it from that standpoint.
Mhm.
I think for me, I'm a big fan of, you know, people often talk about, is the theme good? Are the mechanisms good? Right. And those are kind of the two core topics. But for me, my biggest question is always, is the experience good? And that's kind of refined by, is the experience good for the people who want that experience? And I really designed with that way in mind of, you know, who is the audience, what experience they want, and can the game provide that experience for them? And if it does, but there's only 500 people in that group, then that's the path I've chosen, and fantastic. If there's 10 million people in that group, you know, probably better from a business perspective, but that's kind of the default goal of what I'm trying to achieve with a game.
All right.
So along those lines, Frank, do you prefer cooperative games or competitive games? Not necessarily in your game design, but like it just in general. What seems to be more appealing to you?
I guess for me, because of like my concept of experience, a big part of that is the people you're playing with. So for me, like I have some friends I just don't want to play co-op games with. I've got some friends I really enjoy playing co-op games with. I enjoy them both. Like I've got a lot of co-op games, I've got a lot of competitive games. As you probably noticed from the video game comment earlier, I'm a fairly competitive person. So if I'm playing like competitive games, then I'm obviously doing it to have fun. But for me, I compete with myself. I'm not competing against the other players. I want to try and challenge myself to achieve what I'm setting myself out to do. And that's not always like the best of experiences with certain people, and therefore co-op comes up really highly. But I don't think I could choose between them. Like I feel like they both offer really good experiences for different reasons. I feel like I'm kind of basically sitting on the fence with every single one of your questions today, but I'm trying hard to kind of give honest answers to them and not just be too
that's fine.
one-sided.
That's fine. Abby, what you got?
Oh, where did it go? I had it too. Okay, horizontal, vertical, or if it fits, it sits.
Tricky question.
There we
Yeah,
go.
we
Now
got him.
now
We
we
got him,
stumped him.
Abby.
I was gonna say this one is usually one where it's like people always they're like no, and so I like this one.
I think my immediate thought is, as much as they're the same, like by default, I kind of feel like vertical is more efficient, and therefore I'm drawn to the concept of vertical more, because I feel like when things are vertical, they're taking up less width, and therefore you can get more stuff in. So that's how my mind goes with that one. I like the concept of vertical more so because I feel like it allows efficiency more than horizontal, and it feels more proactive. It feels like I'm standing up and doing something rather than lying down and being lazy. So I'm probably going to go with vertical and just. I mean, I don't know how to answer that question, but that's where my mind went with it.
Yeah. A little bit of self-reflection in that
Yeah,
answer, too,
that's-
Frank.
Yeah, that is.
Get up and do
that's,
stuff.
Awesome.
Don't lie down. Don't be lazy. Don't take up space. Get on with it.
Awesome. All right, so we got another question in chat coming from Dutch Yoda. Which designer or designers would you love to co-design with?
Ooh.
That it's funny because I like to date I've never considered the idea of co-designing with someone. I think that I release so few games that like it eats up so much time that there's so many more games that I want to design, right? There's so many things in my head that I want to kind of go through. And right now I could sit down and probably give you a good description of every game I plan to release over the next 10 years. But no doubt over that time that list will change as more stuff comes in and things get changed around. So I don't really ever consider wanting to co-design with someone just because I feel like I've got like my path mapped out with what I'm going to do with that. If I was to co-design with someone, then I would want it to be someone who's very, very different to me. I would want it to be someone who's got very different, and by more than game design, I mean life experiences. Because for me, I feel like the biggest value of two people coming together is different backgrounds, different experiences, and different ways of thinking about the world. And I feel like that's where inspiration comes from. I feel like that's where people create stuff that they couldn't create on their own. So I would probably look at game designers who have just had very different lives to me, had very different experiences, and then just get in a room and kind of just chat it out. So obviously, again, not actually putting any names out there, right? Just boycotting the whole question, just sidelining it, giving a generalized answer. But I suppose that would be my kind of approach to it.
Oh no, that's fine. Because I mean, I was gonna instantly retweet all those designers that you were gonna mention. Because that would be fantastic. It would be like if someone that we also adore their game design too, we could just be like, hashtag you should design with Frank, kind of thing.
What you need to do is you need to do create a survey of kind of life experience, send it to all the designers, and whoever answers the opposite on every single one to me, that would be the perfect person, I'm sure.
There you go.
All right. Well, on the flip side of that question, do you have like a favorite designer or somebody you like look up to as a mentor in a way?
So not directly. Again, I think that for me, I always try to move away from that mentality and I do the same with everything, right? With music, books, films, like everything. Like I don't try and pinpoint specific people because I want to play and experience new things. And I feel like when you have a particular person who you kind of say like their stuff, whatever they do, I'm going to orientate towards, I'm going to enjoy it, I'm going to want it, it kind of disrupts part of that experience. So I'm outside of the fact that people should be credited and obviously people deserve kind of to be awareness and all of that, I would much rather like boxes just were all black with like a white question mark on it with no text, no designers, no artists, no anything, because I love that concept of like, what is it? And this is what I find great with Kickstarter, and crowdfunding is I back so many projects that by the time stuff turns up, I've got no idea what it is. So every week it's like I'm my own secret Santa when a year ago I bought myself the perfect gift and now it turns up, but I've got no idea what it's going to be. And like that excites me. And that kind of unknown side, right? When I hear of a new designer and I've never seen anything they've done before, that excites me more than something that's come from people who I know, because it just means I don't know what to expect. I had a game turn up a while ago, and it was And I'll be honest, like I don't remember the name off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. I don't remember the designer off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. But I remember that game because I remember opening that box and knowing that there was a pair of gloves inside that box, that there were circuit boards inside that box, that there was a video camera inside that box, there were wires inside that box, and there was a board and there were miniatures and pieces. And I was just like, what is this? Who on earth has put a video camera inside every copy of this game? Who has designed this and created this experience? And it's just like the most wonderful thing. And like, I don't know. So for me, I try and like not think too heavily about the person behind outside of giving credit and obviously being grateful for them kind of to put that forward.
And speaking of crowdfunding and things too, what is the latest game you have backed on crowdfunding, Frank?
I should obviously know this off the top of my head, right? I mean, there's absolutely no way I'm going to be just slowly talking
You can't dodge this question.
and logging into the right account and having a quick look to see what it was. So the latest Kickstarter I backed was actually the Board Game Day book. So that wasn't actually a game, but the last game was Globetrotting.
Okay.
Oh, that's one I'm looking forward
Yes.
to from Road to Infamy. They came out with Canvas, and yeah, it's so elegantly designed. Like your player board is this little globe, and it has a dry erase surface, and you're trying to travel to different locations around the globe, and all the locations are board games. So like Alhambra, Carcassonne, Puerto Rico, like it's so elegant. If you have not seen this Kickstarter, y'all need to check it out. It is so elegant.
But I think that's like a prime example for me to put across my mentality to this stuff. So I backed that Kickstarter because of the globe and the pen, right? And the concept behind that. Because as a publisher, as a designer, as a creator of experiences, I want to experience that experience. I want to understand it. I want to get my hands on it. I want to take it apart, see how it's made, feel how it works, and play around with it. I couldn't tell you what the game's about. I couldn't tell you how it plays. I couldn't tell you who worked on it or what other games they've made, because to me, the reason for backing it was the interest on that one piece, and that was enough. And I'm sure when it turns up, it'll be great, right? Canvas is obviously a very good game, and they've got a good track record in that, but that wasn't the reason for backing it. It's just because there's this cool thing. So put something cool and completely unique in your game, and you've got a backer when it comes to me.
I mean, that's the whole reason that Phantom backed it, was because we were like, I was cruising Kickstarter and I'm like, oh my God, it's a globe. And he's like, what is a globe? And I'm like, bruh, the playing board is a globe. And he's like, you are so full of it. It is not. And then he looks, he goes, oh my God, it's a globe. And then he's like, well, I backed it.
I started looking into it and seeing how it worked, and I'm like, this is genius. Like, how did somebody not come up with this before? And it's so unique. And I kind of have to agree with Frank for the reason why I backed it is, I saw this globe, I saw the dry erase markers, and then I put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, this is a game, and it's great.
Yep.
So good. All right, you got another question for Frank, Gabby?
Yeah, let's see. There's a whole bunch in the chat. James wanted to know if you prefer meeples or cubes, and then metal or I think it was plastic or wood, maybe. Minis or metal is what it was.
Generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of metal. I don't mind it, but I have never once opted to upgrade something to metal deliberately. If it's been like, the default is plastic or wood, there's an option to metal. I just haven't done it. Like, I feel like it's nice, but I don't feel that it's worth the cost. And I don't feel like it's worth the weight. And you can tell it's a very publisher answer, right? I don't feel like it's worth the weight in the shipping box. But metal obviously is very heavy. So I'm not a huge fan of metal. With plastic and wood, and I guess metal comes into this a bit, but I haven't come across an example. So for plastic and wood, I would say for me, it depends on the game and how it thematically connects to that game. I think that there are games where plastic just doesn't feel like it belongs in that game. And likewise with wood, sometimes, if I'm playing some super futuristic space-like game, plastic feels a little bit more in there than wood for a lot of it. And again, when it comes to cubes or meeples, if I'm playing a big, like, complex Euro game or like an 18xx or something, cubes are absolutely fine, right? I'm not playing that game for the thematic experience. But if I'm playing a game like the Art of Cats and I want cats and I want all of this, then, little meeples are just kind of an extra tick on that immersion and that kind of experience over a cube.
All right. Okay, Jess, you got another one?
Yeah, I do. Frank, what is one piece of advice you would give someone that is just starting off in the hobby?
As a gamer,
as a game designer or as a publisher, or just like trying to make not necessarily make a living, because we all know that hasn't become the case, but like to try to make something profitable from the board gaming hobby.
So, I mean, the starting advice I always give, which I think is a reasonably common one, is to whatever you're doing, like, if you're designing a game, get it in front of people quickly, and just so quickly. So some of my friends have learned to hate me because there'll often be a time where we'll be like, hey, should we meet up tonight at 6:00 and play a game? And they'll be like, yeah. And then at lunchtime, we'll be chatting on like Facebook Messenger or something about something. And I'll be like, that sounds like a cool idea. And then I'll spend like the next 2 hours and just make a really quick prototype of this game that I've spent no more than 2 hours thinking about. Often there's bits of full sheets of paper rather than playing cards or whatever. And I'll turn up and like, hey, let's play test this. We've got a new game. I've spent a whole 2 hours on it. Let's start play testing it, because I've learned that that's the only way to get that feedback. It's the only way to work out if something's going to work, is you need people to be playing it. And the desire to have a finished working game before you show it to someone is a natural fear, because you don't want to be judged. You don't want someone to tell you what you've done is bad. But if you rush out and you show them it quickly, if you show them it before it's finished, then it's going to be bad, right? It's not finished, and you kind of bypass some of that fear because you're not there to test the finished thing. So the first one is 100% just get it in front of people. Just get people playing it, seeing it, doing it, and experience that. The second one, which I think is a really key piece of advice for anyone, is understand if you want to be a designer, if you want to be a publisher, or if you want to be something else, but really think about what you want to do. Because the difference between a game designer, a game developer, a rulebook writer, a publisher, these are all very, very different things. A game designer designs games. A publisher runs a business. They are doing businessy things. They're doing contracts. They're speaking with legal advisors, accountants. They're doing spreadsheets, logistics, manufacturing, working out numbers. They make decisions where if you get one number wrong, you could be $200,000 out of pocket. A publisher is a big, complex, risk-filled business. A game designer is very challenging to make money and succeed, because you're going to have multiple games that you need to have multiple games that are doing well before you're really going to start to see any return on that time spent. So the route to kind of making it into a livelihood is super, super challenging, really, really difficult. But you are just game designer, right? You're just designing games. You're pitching them. You've got to learn how to present them. You've got to learn how to create sales sheets and get them in front of people, which is not easy. That in itself is its own challenge. But understand what it is you want to do. Understand what you're trying to achieve before you spend too much time kind of going into it.
Take notes, kids.
Yep, definitely take notes. All right, so
also, sorry,
Yep.
I would add on to that as well, is it's okay just to do it as a hobby. You can design a game for fun. You can design a game and play it with your friends for fun. You don't have to turn it into your job. You don't have to turn it into your livelihood. For me, with the City of Kings, my first game, I never expected to be a publisher, right? I designed that game for fun, and over time it evolved. But that's okay too. Just work out if you want to make something. Do it. Have fun with it. Anyone can sit down and make a game. That's totally fine. You don't need to publish it or sell it or anything like that if that's what you want to do.
All right, that's some great advice. All right, so we're coming up on the last bit of the stream here, so I think we can move over to inside the gamers studio, and let's kick off, as I like to call, the James Lipton questionnaire. So, Frank,
I feel like we need to have some sort of like transition music,
Right?
I
and like
will
Joe
come up
needs
with
to
that.
like put on like a suit jacket or something.
I'm thinking like a smoking jacket, and like just have like a pipe sitting there with like a glass of something.
You know what? I will take those notes into consideration, because that all sounds fantastic. But
I think just the fear on the guest's face of having no idea what's about to happen is probably
it's
enough of a
and now
transition.
we're here.
yeah, actually, we'll ramp the anxiety up a little bit and have some like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire type music, and like the lights dim down and you're all like just tense. But yeah, so Frank, there are no right or wrong answers. Just whatever comes to your mind, feel free to throw it out there. This is a purely for fun questionnaire, and it's kind of meant to put you on the spot, but at the same time, it's to get to know you better. So if you are ready, my friend, first question: what is your favorite board game?
My favorite board game. You said you were going to make this easy for me, didn't you?
No, I never said said I'd make it easy. I said there are no right or wrong answers.
So I will give you an answer because I feel like the question deserves one. But my general answer to this is it depends on the people I'm playing with. Because if I'm playing a 2-player game with my girlfriend, or if I want a big experience with some friends or whatever, my favorite game is really dependent on different places. But one game that I've played many times over the years, I continue to love, and is definitely one of those games, is a game called Eclipse.
Okay.
Which is a big 4X sci-fi game.
All right. Okay, what is your least favorite board game?
Probably the prototype I put in the bin this morning. I mean, that one was pretty crap.
Oh, that's good.
It's tricky. There was a game I played many years ago, and it was called Package. And I feel like the game was like, it was a first-time creator, first-time designer, first kind of thing. It was a very small game. I didn't really expect too much from it. And I did. It's one of the few games I can think of where we just didn't finish, and that's very, 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 very rare. So I'll put that one out there, I guess.
Okay. What
That's
board
fair.
game makes you feel the most happy?
Oh, this is an evil answer. Probably, probably Werewolf, because whenever I play Werewolf, I am the person GMing it, I suppose, and I do love to like put my friends in some evil experiences. Like, for example, we played a game of Werewolf once where there were no werewolves, but no one knew, and I just randomly picked someone every night to kill them off. And that, it makes me really happy just to have that kind of power and experience in a game. So I'll go with Werewolf.
That is a fantastic answer. Like, way to throw your players for a loop. There is no werewolf, but somebody's gonna play one.
I did it one time where there was no werewolf, but then when there were 3 people left, I pretended someone had like got bitten and became a werewolf, and then they were the werewolf, and they were just like convinced like there's a werewolf now, but there wasn't a werewolf, but there is a werewolf, and that really screwed with their heads.
That's so good. Okay, next question: what board game makes you feel the most sad?
I'm probably, I don't know if it's just because it's in front of me, but I'm probably going to say Twilight Imperium. The reason being is that Twilight Imperium is a game that I just wish I could play more and just never get a chance to play. And that in itself is obviously a sad story. But the first time if you want a story from hell, right? If you want the worst nightmare of a board gaming experience,
let us have
Twilight
it.
Imperium. The first time.
Worse than losing a piece on the beach?
Oh my goodness, yes. So, for anyone who doesn't know, Twilight Imperium is a game that is like, it's renowned for taking like 12 hours to play and like taking forever, especially the older editions. It's gotten a bit better, but a long, long time. So I had wanted to play Twilight Imperium for probably 2 years. Okay, like this is since I knew about it. It took me that long to get a group of people to agree to come over, be invested, because I didn't want to force it on people, right, to come over and play it. Me and Sarah spent the night before setting it up, getting all the pieces out, arranging everything. In Twilight Imperium 3rd edition, which this one was, there was no like identifiers for what plastic ship was which. So we literally wrote post-it notes across the whole table. We labeled each individual component. We spent hours preparing this to save time and have the optimal experience, and I was so excited. Yes, you could hardly sleep. My friends were coming over. They were getting there at 9 a.m. We had them until like at least midnight, and the whole thing was planned. We sat down and we taught it, spent a good hour or two going through the rules. We were finally going to play. And then on the very, very start of the first round, the two people either side of me said, we don't really know what we're going to do, so we're just going to kill Frank and then kill me in the first turn.
Wow. Oh, that's evil.
So my first experience of Twilight Imperium was spending 2 years preparing for it and then getting knocked out basically before I got a turn on the game.
Oh my goodness. That's
so it makes me quite
similar.
sad for multiple reasons.
Wow, that's almost similar to our first Twilight Imperium experience, Abby. If you want to share that.
Yes, so we played it. Well, so our first one was we didn't finish the game because it was just to teach, but then we streamed it with Brain in a Jar, Casey and Miguel. And I had it set up so that I would be able to finish the game, hit the 10 points and win. I had a plan. I was all set. All of a sudden, after Casey's turn, she goes, "Oh, I messed something up. I need to mulligan." And Miguel and Joe were both like, "Yeah, that's fine." And it took a point from me. So then I had to quickly scrounge up another point, which is super hard to do. I lost it. If I could have flipped the table, I would have. There's video proof of me just totally melting down about this point, and like I was like, "Are you kidding me?" No, she jerked me off of a point. Like now I'm out of point, and now I can't finish this stupid game. And so yeah, there is video proof of it because we did it on stream. But I went and bought myself a consolation prize of a gigantic war sun as my, because I still ended up winning.
Actually, I have it handy. Let me go grab it.
So it that was my prize because Joe decided to let them mulligan and take a point for me. So then we had to get a very gigantic war sun printed.
Yeah, so here's the 3D printed gigantic golden war sun that is Abby's trophy.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic story. I love it. All right, getting back on track here. Next question.
Before you do that, Joe,
Oh, yeah.
James says he also commiserates with you, Frank and Abby, that would also make them very sad.
Thank you.
Sliver, so I didn't sleep on the couch that evening because it wasn't my fault. It was Casey's fault.
No, it was. So I blamed Casey. And then Miguel and Joe just agreed to let it go. So Joe just apologized. And I was like, fine, but you'll have to buy me something nice. And he goes, no problem. Like, no questions asked. And I was like, here's this really obnoxiously large war sun. And he goes, okay, I'm in. And I was like, that was easy.
that was my compensation. I got off easy. So many good memories. All right, okay. Next question, Frank. What board game components do you love?
What board game components do I love? So I'm one of those people that when someone is teaching the game, I will try and stack whatever I can and make the tallest tower of things. And I know it drives them mad, but I love it. So my favorite board game components are probably things that shouldn't stack but can stack if you spend enough time fiddling with them and playing around with them, because I just enjoy getting pieces and just building that pile up as tall as you can, to the point where the person teaching the rules stops teaching the rules because they're intrigued by how high you're going to get this tower at this point, because they're invested in what you're doing. So stackable
So
components.
do you do like the little cube pyramids too, Frank, where you're like
I do. I really, really do. I feel
That's
like
awesome.
it's the board gamer's equivalent of, like poker players when they like flicking the chips and they're kind of shuffling them between two fingers. We can't do that, but we can just stack them. We can stack things, we can make patterns. And when we have to use a cube, we have to design a new stacking system to make the remaining cubes fit just as neatly as the previously one. So
that's great. All right, so on the flip side of that, what board game components do you dislike?
ones that don't fit in the box is probably the immediate answer. I daren't say this because I know that half of the world will hate me immediately, but I absolutely hate dice. Like, I hate dice so much. Like, if there's one thing that can put me off, is we spend like an hour explaining this super complicated game and then someone says, and now for the dice, and then I'm just like, I'm not up for it. So I'll play them, obviously I enjoy them, but dice like are my least favorite component. I just hate them. I hate games where you roll them. Like, just give me something else. Like, it doesn't matter, a deck of cards, a bag with bits in it, just don't make me roll dice.
That's
Wow,
fair.
that's a pretty passionate answer. I like it. All right.
I hate them. I really do. I honestly like.
Fair enough.
And remember, friends, everyone's entitled to their opinion, so don't at Frank.
Yep, exactly.
About your love of dice.
Again, there are no right or wrong answers here. So exactly. Okay, what board game is so bad that its name should become a curse word?
What board game is so bad? Oh my goodness, that's a really difficult question. Nothing immediately comes to mind that its name should become a curse word. I think I'm stumped on this one. I'm looking around just trying to think of okay, I'm gonna cheat. I've got a cheat answer here because I feel like I'm going to say pandemic, because technically I think the word pandemic has become a curse word in the last couple of years.
I like that answer.
I think that I'll further define that by Cthulhu Pandemic. Okay, I don't think Pandemic itself is a bad game, but Cthulhu Pandemic is a pandemic that I don't think needs to exist. I'm just going to say it, right? Like, out of all the pandemic themes, whoever thought, you know what would be a great theme for pandemic? Let's go for Cthulhu, because no one's done that before, right? It's an unused, brand new theme that I wasn't a huge fan of. So we'll go with that. Cthulhu Pandemic.
All right.
I also thought it was quite interesting, like when we were kind of like right at the beginning of the actual global pandemic, that there was some version of pandemic that got released.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it might have been Pandemic Hot Zone or something like that. And I remember several people on like the board gaming like Twitter sphere were like, "Ooh, is it too soon to like have a new version of Pandemic?"
That's right. It was like a fast pace, I think, on your feet, like mini game. It was Hot Zone North America, and it was during the pandemic, and it went to Target. And I'm like, yeah, that was not a great business decision.
And remember, they delayed one of their games because of flooding, and it was tied to, like, it was pandemic something that had to do
Oh,
with
that's
you know,
right.
trying to
Pandemic,
build
Rising
flooding
Tides.
wall.
Yeah.
Yes, and so they delayed that. So I was just like, oh, pandemic, you're 2 for 2 right now, you guys.
Yeah.
See, I'm
Check
just
your
waiting for us
marketing.
to be further along in the process so I can do the Isle of Cats social distancing expansion where you've got to rescue all the cats and get them on your boat, but they all have to be at least 6 foot away from each other.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not going to make it back. So.
I totally missed this in chat, but Dutch Yoda says, as a kid here, not liking dice, apparently the Isle of Cats, the dice game, is canceled.
That's not going to happen.
So looking forward to that one. That's great. Okay, moving right along. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Ooh, okay, so that's tricky because my immediate answer was the job I had before I did this. But as it's attempt, that would suggest I've not done it before. So I'm going to have to think of... I don't know if I can say this out loud, but I love the idea of being prime minister. So the guy who runs the country. I think that's something I would love to have a go at, because if you could say, like, you can have any job and we're going to give it to you, then that's the one for me, because I just feel like, you know, I create fantasy, fun, exciting filled worlds with perfectly balanced like systems within them for a living. So surely I can just do that for the country and just make it like this super fun, balanced system that we're all going to have a big laugh with, you know, and maybe there's a few colored cats running around. Maybe there's an elf somewhere, who knows? But I love the idea of going to, like, you know, the local supermarket and there's a couple of dwarfs running around, or like, you know, just some big creature that you're something like, I was going to buy my groceries, but now we're all going on a mission and we're going to have to team up and find a healer so we can kill down this beast so we can get to the tills or something, you know? So I think I would probably try and cheat, take over the country, and then just become like designer of the country instead. Which is probably an answer that most people wouldn't give, because
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's interesting, James. James is like, president of Gamma. Is that greater than being prime minister?
Ooh, that, you know what?
That's
That's a good question.
it's probably more enjoyable. I'll put it out that way. Very, very different types of positions, to say the least.
All right, fair enough. Okay. What profession would you not like to do?
So despite the fact that I travel all the time, I absolutely hate flying. So any sort of profession that involves working on an aeroplane, whether it's a pilot or a hostess or anything, I just could not do. Every time I get on a plane to fly anywhere, I'm just basically like trying to like shut my eyes and pretend that I'm not there. So I don't know how those people do it. I could never ever do that. So that's my direct answer. I don't want to work on a plane because I don't want to go near them. I really, really don't.
Oh, that's
So
too
we all
funny.
need to like think about teleportation systems for the future.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
can just all
Somebody-
just like teleport to across different continents.
Exactly. Somebody needs to fund that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had a really fun conversation with Sarah last time we were flying to America, because she's also not a big fan of flying. And we were talking about the fact that neither of us ever sleeps because we just can't sleep when we're traveling, and we're both constantly like in fear like the whole time. And she was like, you know, maybe next time we should try like, you know, sleeping tablets or something that makes you more drowsy and makes you kind of easier for you to go to sleep. And my response to that was, so when the plane crashes and we find ourselves in the ocean being chased by sharks, you want to be under the influence of drugs that are trying to make you fall asleep? Because I want to be wide awake when we're fighting those sharks. So I ruined that one for us. But that's generally where my mind goes with flying and any of that kind of stuff.
Wow. So it's kind of along the lines of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. All right. And the final question of the questionnaire. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
End of round 1. Round 2 starts in 5 minutes.
Wow.
I love it.
Wow.
Yes!
Not expecting that. Oh, not expecting that. Frank, you killed it. Well done, sir. Wow, that is absolutely fantastic.
That was some tough questions. That was a lot more tough than I was expecting. So.
Yeah. So it's a second time we've done it. So what did you think?
Yeah, no, it was really, really good. It was it's obviously questions that you don't necessarily think about very often. I think for me, because I generally, as I've said, like I don't think of names, designers and things. I kind of keep quite an open, flat opinion. Like trying to give direct answers is challenging for me. I think a lot of people, they probably will maybe find that easier. So like, the top favorite game, right? My top favorite game is 100% dependent on the people in the group. And if I want solo, 2-player, 4-player, 10-player, 50-player and stuff. So I found it hard, but I think it's good because being put on the spot is fun and it's exciting, unless you say something like you want to run the country accidentally, then you don't do anything that you're going to regret saying, right?
Yeah. Nobody's ever going to see this. It's not like it's being recorded or anything.
Not at all.
That's fine.
Yeah. All right. So, Jess, I will kick it over to you if you want to start closing things out.
Yeah, so before we end though, Frank, I will remind you that we have that beautiful graphic. If you could just color that whenever you're ready, send it over because it will be added to our backdrop. And we invite all of our guests to do that here. But what is something that's coming up that you would like to share with everyone? Something from City of Games, something that's kind of coming down the pipeline that you're okay talking about. That's people can look forward to.
So I think the exciting one for me is Race to the Raft. Obviously, I haven't really talked about details and stuff, but that is the next big thing, and it's really not too far away at the moment. So to a point where you can go to racetotheraft.com and it will ask you for an email address if you want an announcement and information about it, which may or may not be something that you would like to do. So, like, it's funny because it's such an easy answer, right, to say my next game, whatever. But I think for some perspective, this is the first completely brand new game that I've designed from scratch for over 3 years. And that, it's not something I do very often these days. I don't release games every couple of months. They're very thought out. I spend a long time on them and they go through a lot of lines. There's been a lot of games that I've cancelled despite them being far across because they've just not ticked those boxes. And for this to cross the line for me is it's super exciting. Like I am so pumped for it. Like I really, really am. And I just want to sing and dance and scream about it. And it's so hard to hold back and not talk about the game, but it won't be long. So racetotheraft.com and you'll hear so much about it soon. I promise. It's so exciting.
Dutch Yoda wants to know, is there a playmat for Explore and Draw?
There isn't. So with Explore and Draw, like one of the key parts of that was to keep it very small and portable and keep it something people can take to places, which kind of contradicts the playmat kind of part of it. It's something that now the game's grown and there are more people who buy it just because they want it at home and they enjoy it. Like it's something I'm starting to think about, but there's nothing planned at the moment.
Okay. Any more expansions for Isle of Cats? That's what I want to know.
You mean other than the social distancing one, which we just talked about?
Yeah, obviously. I'm going to sign up for that one right away.
Nothing at the moment. So I generally, with Isle of Cats, like technically speaking, if you include the Kickstarter packs, there are 5 expansions for that now, which is a considerable amount. And I really want people just to be able to enjoy the content and play them and just get through it. And then we'll see where people are once they've kind of done that. At the moment, it's too early. Like they've only been out for a few months and I don't believe enough people have played them enough to warrant selling more and more expansions because there's enough gameplay there, right? There's enough cool stuff. So we'll see in the future. Like it's definitely not like the end, but there's nothing planned for the immediate future.
Awesome. Dutch Yoda says, first we get Isle of Dogs, which can be combined into Isle of Cats.
Maybe. We'll see.
I don't know. Wes Anderson might have something to say about that.
Yes.
Yeah. That is very true. Also, what is the next convention that folks can see you at, Frank?
So the next one will be Essen Spill, I believe. There's a small one in the UK I might go to. I'm not sure yet, but Essen Spill is the next one, which is definitely going to happen. And in America, I have bought tickets to go to PAX Unplugged, so I will be at PAX Unplugged as well.
Awesome. I think that's the next one for us here for the CCG crew, right?
I mean, I would love to go to PAX U, but it's probably just not in the cards financially. So I think the next one for Abby, and I, is probably OrcaCon here in Seattle.
Yep.
Nice, nice. Yeah, Board Game Breeze says she'll see you at Spiel, Frank, and
Awesome.
Dutch, and as well at PAX Unplugged. Awesome. That is so awesome.
Looking
Yeah,
forward
the
to
next
it.
one for me will be PAX Unplugged. So December can't come soon enough. I do wish I could go to Spiel one of these days. It's definitely a bucket list item. And maybe if we get that teleportation thing working, it'll be much more feasible
There you go.
A very long
just
trip.
teleport all of us. All right. Well, all right. Any final thoughts? Any last words you want to leave our community with, Frank, before we sign off and send everybody on a raid train?
From my perspective, I just want to thank you guys for letting me come on here and thank everyone for asking questions. There's been a few names in the chat who I've not had a chance to chat to on Twitch for a long time. So thank you guys for popping by and kind of saying hi. But yeah, just thanks for having me on. Like, it's been really, really great. I hope to come on again in the future and to see you guys at shows and just hang out a bit more. It's been really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm intrigued to want to play like an RPG with you, Frank, because it seems like you would be a really good GM or just a part of the adventuring party.
Mm-hmm. I'm one of these people who will just open every single bad thing just to see what happens. So I warn you, right? If you play a game with me, we're on the
castle,
same side.
You're gonna go into the dungeon. You're gonna slay the dragon. I get it.
When I first designed the City of Kings, which is my kind of big role-playing board game, and some of my friends, we were play testing it back in the early days, and we'd do things, and there'd be like an option. There'd be like, "Do you want to do this or that?" And they'll do something, and they read the card. It'd be like, "This good thing happened. You get all of this," and I would always just turn around and go, "Let's just assume you chose the wrong option, and all the bad stuff happened, and we'll go with that because I don't want you to have fun. You can't have the good options happen." So I'm a big fan of disasters and digging out of holes.
That's awesome. Yeah, it would be really fun. A few of us here on the chat are going to be starting an offline RPG, which I feel is less pressure because you don't. There's things about like being on stream that you have to be present and also want to engage with the chat, but then you're also trying to play as your character, and so there's just a lot of extra input that you have to put in, and so. I thought if we were going to do an RPG, it would be something to do off stream, which I think is kind of like, let your hair down. It's okay. Like,
yeah,
if
absolutely.
tech issues happen, you don't have to worry about like, I'm sorry, chat, things are happening. Like, you can just restart your computer like in the middle of a campaign and it's totally fine.
No, that sounds really cool. No, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be awesome. All right. Well, as we're closing down, I'm going to throw it back to my lovely co-host, Abby. What do you got going on for streaming this week, my dear?
So I'll let Joe hit his channel where I will be, but I will just be playing Cult of the Lamb on Thursday at 4:30 because I can't stop playing at this point.
Super adorable.
Love my little cultists. So that's my week. And then whatever Joe says.
Yes, whatever I say. I love those words. Anyway, so for me on Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, Abby and I are going to be welcoming Jamie Sabriel Flez onto our stream. They are a queer board game designer, and they're going to show off a game called Fight Sequence, which I'm excited to try out. And then on Friday, Abby and I haven't decided what we're going to play yet, but we'll be playing something on Friday at 4:30, and then special Saturday stream at noon, where we'll be joined by Brandon Najjar, Casey, and Miguel, and we will be debuting Randy Flynn's To Breeze. So stay tuned for that. It's an exciting week ahead.
Awesome. And for me, friends, I will be back here on this channel on Wednesday morning. I have decided to go with another themed month. So the month of September, I am calling Space-tember. So I am doing space-themed games for all of my Learn and Plays. So this Wednesday, I'm going to be going through a game of Underfallen Skies. It's a game that I bought ages ago and want to bring back to the table. And what better way to start off Space-tember than you're fighting alien spaceships. So that's going to be Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And then Friday for my board game adjacent, I'm actually going to be assembling a puzzle I got from the Extra Life campaign. It was my first time doing Extra Life. And so I reached a certain dollar amount for fundraising. And so they sent me this really cool puzzle, and it's a bunch of kiddos like on like planets in space. So it'll be really cool to just assemble things and kind of just have a fun, chill stream for you all. So that's what's going on. But if you want to give us all the follows there in the chat, you can see all of our links to everything, including Frank's website for cityofkings.com, where you can find all the stuff about upcoming things. And even there's a link for Race to the Raft as well that you can do that. And so, yeah, there we go. That is all for us. But now, Joe, where shall we send our lovely friends on a raid train to?
Ooh, that's a good question. While I look, is your tournament game going to be space themed as well?
I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure yet because a lot of my games I don't have necessarily like that are quick dice games for like spacey, but I will get back to you on that. I didn't think about that. But yes, my tournament game, something on Wednesday, will be something that people can just print and play. Something simple for us to go through. If anyone has any suggestions, James Brazil, I'm looking at you, Mr. Print and Play. Let me know for that. So yeah.
Okay, so I got a couple of choices. M Peoples is on. Girls Game 2 is on playing Wonderland's War, or if you want to wait 2 minutes, the loser should be going live, Dutch says.
Okay. Let's right over to Girls Game 2.
Okay.
They're a new channel for us, and Wonderland's War just looks like a fantastic game.
It is very fun. I got a chance to play it at 4-player, and it is a very wonderful area control game, and the theme's great too. Like fitting Alice in Wonderland in there is really, really fun.
Yeah, it just the table presence just looks phenomenal on that. So yeah, but once again, friends, let's say thanks to Frank. We appreciate you taking time out of your evening. I know the lovely Sarah is probably eating dinner and sleeping right now. So thank you for taking time out of your evening that you would actually be spending with her. So we appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. And I say thanks for having me on, guys. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on with us.
Awesome. Alrighty, we're gonna send you all over to Girls Game 2. Make sure you give them all the emotes, all the love, give them some follows. We like it to spread the love of gaming. But yeah, Joe, do you want to sign us off?
Yeah, absolutely. If you did you get the raid going yet? Because that is one thing I cannot do.
Oh yeah, that's right. Girls Game
girls with a Z.
2 with a number 2.
No, girls
T-O-O.
with a Z and
T-O-O.
T-O-O.
Girls with a Z and T-O-O.
Yep, there it is. The raid has been started. All right, fantastic.
There we go, friends. Yeah, I didn't realize that that's one thing that for running on my stream key from your OBS, it doesn't have the raid command because you're not logged in as me.
No, but I can tell you how to do that after we're done streaming here. There is a way. But yeah,
Okay,
this
awesome,
has been
though.
amazing. Again, Frank, thank you for joining us. Thank everybody in chat for joining us. And yeah, show Girls Game 2 some love, and we'll see you all next time.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, friends.
Bye.